All right, so I'm here with Andrew today, who is a member of our Valorant squad and has been involved in the program for a few years now. And which esports did you start off with originally?
Yeah, so originally I started off in my 5th grade year playing Rocket League, but I was all the time from home. That was from 5th to 8th grade. I had Ian as my first coach, and then I moved on to Brandon Suter.
Yeah.
So, and then this is actually my first year playing Valorant. So, it's definitely like a different environment. I feel like on Rocket League it was more like connected individually, like to individual practices and like getting better on your own. But Valorant's more of like a team game where you definitely have to like
For sure.
work with your teammates to like time your abilities and all that stuff. So
Right. Do you have a preference as far as working on individual? Because Rocket League is 3 players, right?
yeah.
So, what was it like training for that game versus doing 5v5?
Yeah, so Rocket League, I would say, is a lot of individual practice. I mean, we still have like the 3v3 practice games, like against other teams, or whether it's just like unranked. But I feel like it's a lot more like training on your own, getting specific mechanics to work in different situations. Rather, like Valorant is more, you have to like, it's a lot more team practicing because you only really get better by yourself with your aim, like maybe movement.
For sure.
But a lot of the abilities, a lot of it is like in a team environment.
You have to know when to play off someone else's abilities and vice versa. Like you have to set them up for
Yeah,
success,
exactly. So it's like I may have like a flash or a stun to help you swing because like I won't have time to flash for myself.
For yourself. Yeah.
So it's like we have to work together, call out like timing, like I'm gonna flash 3, 2, 1, and then they swing. So it's,
I'm glad you bring that up because it makes me think about some of the training that I've been listening to. So, while I'm running Siege over here, I hear you guys trying to discuss some of these plays. And I want to know from your perspective, because it seems like, for the most part, when you're training, it sounds like you're the one who's taking most of the charge as far as what's going to be executed. So I want to know from your point of view how challenging of a process it's been to get everyone on the same page or get everyone to even just understand their abilities. Like, what's that been like?
yeah, so definitely we have some new players, like new to Valorant. We've been working with them to like help figure them out, the abilities, get them like up to like standard pretty quickly. A lot of it, like for our practice games and our real games, of course, it's a lot of, we usually try to stick to like the simple pushes. We keep the like split pushes or defaults to practice, but we do like main pushes in games. We usually like to clear out main, walk up to entry, then we try and get it sorted out really quickly, like who's gonna flash, stun, when, where. We usually, I'm the one, but I do the countdown, like 3, 2, 1, swing. Everyone who's like designated stun, flash, they all do their thing, and then we all entry same time. Everyone holding different angles, because if we all hold like the same angle, then it's not beneficial.
Of course, yeah.
So, and then once we're on site, if everything goes to plan, we do quick communication, like I'm planting, checking backside, checking market, so stuff like that. And then usually there's a lot more comms from the team there, but the main problem is just trying to get the team to like figure out how to comm for entry.
Do you find it difficult? Like, will some people just not talk?
Yeah, so there's definitely been games where it's been like close games and I could tell that they're definitely feeling that pressure in that moment. So, like obviously like I'll have to help, like remind them or like help, tell them to push a certain spot, or I'll push with them so that it's not like we're just losing a player. We're like, we find a way to work with it until they learn how to like work as a team. Because a lot of them, they have their like burst of lots of communication, and then they'll just focus on like their job, and they won't like talk. So it's like I have to like say, for example, we have Michael. Like for example, he's one of the last ones onto site. So
what role does he play typically?
He plays sentinel.
Okay.
So, but usually like when we're practicing ascent, he usually delays a little bit to see the mid push. So I'll say, like, how's mid, or do we know any info mid? Do you need help? Like stuff like that. And then obviously like if he does need help, I'll go help, or I'll send someone else to go help. But usually we have about like 3 or 4 players that definitely take initiative on willing to like calm for not only themselves but like to help call out plays for others.
Okay, that's great. Now, I know it hasn't been very much time that you guys have been practicing as a squad. You know, it's only been maybe 5 weeks at this point. Have you noticed? There's 2 things I want to ask here. First off is, have you noticed a shift with any of your teammates as far as how their demeanor started when they began practicing versus now, if they're more communicative or anything like that? And do you feel like, it sounds like you have to do a lot of leadership. Like you've had to kind of step up and take charge in many ways.
Yeah, so that's mainly like trying to get everything like going, like get the train moving to first start. And then I feel like definitely like you said from the beginning, there's like most of our players started like
kind of shy.
Yeah, kind of like not talkative. But then like definitely as we've gone on, like I know Michael's taking a big role. Definitely talking a lot more. At the beginning, it was only like me and 1 or 2 other players that were like talking. But definitely now, a lot of them have, or if not all of them, have pitched into the comms in game. Definitely calling for like help on 1v1s so that we don't like, so we could trade and not just lose a man.
Awesome. Has there been any specific tools or routines that you've done that have been helpful in that regard as far as improving communication, or has that just happened naturally over the course of playing together over time?
Most of it has honestly happened over time, getting to know like a bond with one another, and then like just becoming like more comfortable like with making the wrong call out, because a lot of them like that was their main problem. Like they would be too shy to say watch one mid or like watch one on site still. But it's like you could always watch it and then there be no one there, rather than don't watch it and then they like shoot you blindside.
So for context, what we're talking about here is in Valorant specifically, because everyone's playing on a map and there's different regions of the map that each team is trying to cover, sort of like a field in any other sport. Players are trying to narrow down the names of what those different sections are called and how to identify pushes that are happening from the opposing team, and staying on the same page in that regard. So it sounds like that's been a really great lesson for you guys to, I guess, just get out of your shell and start training those things more. So that's great to hear as far as esports go. I also want to ask you, so this is your freshman year at Bosco. What has that experience been like? I know I hear all about it in the lab, but I'd love to, I want to get your sort of on the record perspective on what it's like being in high school now.
Yeah, so kind of do the same thing for like esports, but my first couple of weeks in high school, I was definitely like more shy, more timid, especially like meeting new kids I've never seen before for the first time. But definitely once you get to know each other, it's like everyone has that brotherhood connection that they talk about, and it's
For
like
sure, yeah.
you could definitely just be yourself, like whether it's out like on the playground or in the classroom.
You can almost be yourself too much.
Yeah.
Everyone turns into a goofball after a while, which I mean, I was there back when I went to Bosco. But that is one of the things that really makes the school kind of special, is that you'll meet all kinds of really cool friends, and you have that freedom to sort of be yourself, since it's an all-guys school. Outside of, well, I guess I'll ask, as far as classes go, do you have a subject that you prefer, or do you have a track that you're aiming for academically in high school so far?
I would say mainly like just engineering is like really big for me. So like the math, the science.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's also one of my hardest classes.
Oh, I'll bet.
So, I mean, other than that, all the other classes are fine. Like, really don't like. I mean, I don't like them, but I don't not like them. Like, I, I still prefer the engineering subjects like math and science. For example, I'm doing geometry right now.
Okay, so you're technically in the, because I don't know if it's the same, but when I was a freshman, you could take pre-algebra, regular, which is where most people start, and then geometry if you're good at math.
Yeah.
Is that how it is currently still, or?
Yeah, I'm in a class of mainly sophomores.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
you're enjoying math, and are you a part of? Is there an engineering program that you're a part of at the moment?
I'm doing robotics.
Oh, so you're also in robotics with Isaiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make that work like between the different extracurricular.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because definitely a lot of schedules are like mixed up, like overlapping. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge. And I mean, that's something that you'll deal with here, I would say, on probably the most intense basis, because high school is still structured in the same way that like elementary school was, whereas in college, depending on when your classes take place, you can kind of fit things together a little bit better. That's really cool. So engineering, and you're also doing soccer.
Yeah,
as
I'm
well?
doing soccer.
How's soccer going?
It's good. We had our first like pregame scrimmage against Warren 2 weeks ago, I believe. We did pretty well. We won that game, 2-1 actually.
And you're goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I play goalkeeper. That's another same thing as esports. I feel like since a lot of kids don't know each other, they were like scared to say their opinions on like the other team. For example, like pre-match, there was like minimal talking in the warm-ups. Like there's a bunch of just silent running around. And then, for example, when we came into halftime, it was only like me and a couple other players that were like trying to give information to help the team. Rather, I feel there was definitely some kids that had some information, but they were too scared to like say the wrong thing.
I'm curious now, since you have that perspective happening at the same time with both sports, have you found that it's easier for people to break out of their shell when you're behind the screen on Discord talking through Valorant, or when you're outside? And like, what is the difference in that dynamic there, I guess I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, so I feel behind the screen, like as someone who's like kind of shy myself, I feel like behind the screen it's like you won't really be judged by other people as much as you would in person, because
sure,
like you can definitely say what you want like over Discord, and
you're not looking at them face to face per se.
But like, for example, on the soccer field, it's like if we're in a huddle or something and you say something that like is wrong, I feel like a lot of people would like look
They're
at you.
Actually looking at you, and you see their expression. Yeah.
And you could definitely like shut down because of it. It's like you get like anxious and embarrassed. So
that's so interesting, because I've always had the opposite. I thought if you were outside, like you're with each other in person, then those things would break down quicker. But now you're telling me that because you have sort of like, I guess you could say, the safety of your own spot that you stay at most of the time, then people can actually feel more comfortable to talk, which is, I never really thought of it that way. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I would say like I was saying, when you're behind the screen, it's like, one, people won't really like judge you, but also like, for example, when we're sitting in the lab and you're sitting like next to your teammates, you still build that like chemistry with one another, and like you could definitely open up way faster. For like many reasons, obviously, but main thing is like not feeling embarrassed or being able to like be yourself, especially when playing the game. It's like you have a different focus, while you could also like build chemistry with the other team or with your team, and like create a brotherhood.
For sure. I think culture in every sport is incredibly important. And because esports is a little bit newer, especially in the high school scene, we have an opportunity to sort of set the standard of what's acceptable. I remember playing volleyball at Bosco, and I had a hard time because, some of the other players might not be so nice, and, there's size differentials. I wasn't the biggest guy on the squad. So you have to contend with those things. But because I think a lot of the players who come into esports are already, they've got a chill disposition to start with. You don't have to worry about that so much. People still get frustrated, obviously, but we're not taking it out on each other as much. I'd like to think, and hopefully we get to continue down that track. There was something else I wanted to ask you. I'm trying to think off the top of my head right now. So we covered sports. We talked about esports. This is what I was thinking. I've been trying to gauge some of the elements. Like this goes to what we were talking about as far as culture. Is there anything about the program, because you've actually been here for quite a while at this point, that you wish you could see, or you wish was different, or you would add to it to make things better?
I would say, this year, I'm not sure about past years as much, but this year, like after trainings, how we do our activity outside, that definitely helps a lot with like building more of a community inside of all of esports instead of just like your small little groups.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I think this was another interview where I talked about it, but it's so much. It's a big difference because the volleyball thing that we did a couple weeks ago, that was the first time I had been at one of those outdoor ones, aside from like my 6 a.m. practices, but that was just with my squad. Getting to see all the esports players interact with each other outside of their units was like fantastic. So I second you on that one. So it sounds like just more stuff outside of just the games in general. Would be
so good. Besides the like training after practice, there are times where we like see each other outside during school hours, and we'll have a little conversation, whether it's like with me or whether I see two other guys, whether they're in the same game or not, that they're still talking. Mm-hmm. And I definitely feels like we built a big connection like with each other, definitely from the start. And I feel like seeing each other every day after school and in school, but we have more like, it's more like family than just friends, because like we are someone who could like talk about random things, like just like say our mind, whatever we want to talk about, and they'll always listen and they'll always talk like about what they want to talk about too.
Do you ever see these guys around campus, like during school, like or at lunch or anything, or is it mainly afterwards?
I would say I actually bumped into Connor today after lunch. So we were talking for a little bit, and then we don't really have like, we don't eat together, but like still. Yeah. Like we still talk. If we see each other, we'll go walk up to each other, like have a quick conversation.
Yeah.
So
I think that's super cool because I didn't really sit with the volleyball guys necessarily. Even the ones in my grade, we all had our own sort of like separate circles of friends, I guess you could say, that we would sit at lunch with and what have you. But then seeing them in the hallway, like when you're going to a different class, is maybe at an inside joke or something.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. Last question I have off the top of my head is, do you see yourself involved in esports to some capacity in the future? Like, has this piqued your interest at all in casting or getting involved in college, or hey, maybe I want to play professionally or anything like that down the line?
Yeah, so I'm still trying to like get things sorted, but I would say this isn't my priority. Like, obviously, if I gotta choose between playing in soccer, esports, or soccer,
soccer's your number one.
Yeah. Playing in college, like, Yeah, esports
Oh, okay,
or
yeah,
soccer.
competing later on. Soccer. What would you say is your main focus between the two, soccer or engineering?
Um, I mean, that's still like, I would definitely say academics because, like, for example, soccer, unless you're like the top name, you only play for like, let's say I make it pro, you only play for like 20 years maximum, if that maybe like 10. And I feel like unless you really know how to strategize, like using your money, it's like you'll
That
like,
could go really badly.
yeah, it's
I
like,
mean, yeah. Let's first off, there's not that many pro athletes to begin with.
yeah,
You have to be, in. You have to be really good. You have to meet all sorts of right circumstances in order to get to that position to begin with. But there's a lot that get to that number one spot and they think that's just going to last forever. And they
yeah,
don't know how to manage their money properly and they end up in more trouble. Just a quick aside. So I took a financial literacy class with my union, with the actors union. And there was an actress who fresh out of college, she worked on a TV show and I think she made, it was like close to 100K, like, just fresh out of the gate, which
yeah,
is like phenomenal for her. But when you start making that amount of money, you start to think you have access to more things than you actually do. And then the next year she didn't make any because
yeah,
she wasn't that show didn't get renewed for another season. So if you're spending that much and now you've got mortgages to worry about, you've got car payments to worry about, and that income isn't happening anymore, that's actually a very prudent perspective that you have to have skills outside of soccer to support you later down the line.
yeah. So like you were saying, like how the show didn't get renewed, it's like the same thing in soccer. It's like you could get injured at any time, and
Yeah,
like there goes your
totally.
whole season, and who knows, maybe you never play soccer professionally again,
Yeah.
and you only have that like kind of money, so you definitely need like outside skills to like help you with that
Absolutely.
down the road.
I mean, you could technically stay in the industry. Like if you wanted to do sports broadcasting, or I'm sure you'd have connections at that point where you could stay in the soccer industry, but that will never quite be the same. And like you said, it does require other skills, kind of like how we get in front of the camera right now.
Yeah.
You'd have to transition from being a player to now being a public speaker and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for your time and your thoughts on all those sorts of things. Is there anything else you want to say or close out with before we wrap up?
That's it. Just again, like the chemistry with one another, like not only in esports, not only in soccer, but like for the school, I could definitely see like how they say there's a brotherhood. Like I definitely feel that connection.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah,
It was
thank
a
you,
real
thank you.
pleasure talking with you.